You're standing in front of the mini split, remote in hand, and you press the button marked turbo. Maybe you press it twice just to be sure. Then you wait for the room to drop like a stone. It won't, at least not the way you're picturing it. Turbo mode doesn't make your air conditioner any colder than it was already going to get. All it does is get you to the temperature you already set faster, and on a lot of units it quietly shuts itself back off after about 20 minutes. So if turbo isn't some hidden reserve of cooling power, what is it actually doing back there? Two things, both at once. It runs the fan flat out, and it pushes the compressor as hard as it will go, both aimed at closing the gap between the warm room and your set temperature as fast as possible. The whole point of it is speed. Think of it as a speed button, not a power button. It gets you to your set temperature quicker. The coldest the room can actually get doesn't change at all. And there's a decent chance you're hunting for this button in the wrong place to begin with. If you're running a normal central air system with a wall thermostat, you probably don't have a turbo mode at all. That kind of system just doesn't work this way. Turbo shows up on the units that can vary how hard they run. Ductless mini splits, the inverter window units like the Medea U, portable coolers, and the smart remotes people clip on like a CeeLo or a Sensibo. It's one feature wearing a dozen different names. Depending on the brand, it gets called Powerful, Jet, Jet Cool, High Power, Strong, or Boost. If you've got one of those, that's your button. Keep one thing in the back of your mind before we go on. If you ever hit turbo and the unit gets loud but the room still won't go properly cold, that combination means something specific, and I'll come back to it. Here's what's going on under the hood. On an inverter unit, and that's basically every mini split, the compressor normally speeds up and slows down on its own to hold your temperature steady. Turbo overrides that and forces it to run at 100%. On a cheaper fixed-speed window unit, the compressor is already just on or off with nothing in between, so turbo there is mostly cranking the fan up to its highest speed. That's why turbo feels like it genuinely does something on a good mini split, and feels pretty weak on a basic window box. A lot of these units build a timer right into the feature, and the manuals all describe it the same way, a short, high-speed burst that ends on its own. Daikin calls it powerful mode. On a Daikin, it runs flat out for exactly 20 minutes, then drops itself back to whatever you had it set to before. LG's version is called Jet Cool, and this one gives the whole game away. It blasts at high fan aiming for 64 degrees for 30 minutes no matter what number you've got showing on the remote. And that detail matters more than it looks. It ignores your set point completely. So cranking the thermostat down to 60 to try to make turbo work harder does exactly nothing. Turbo is already running as hard as it runs. The number on the remote is just along for the ride while it does its thing. Not every brand builds in that timer though. Plenty of units, especially the smart remotes and some window models, just leave turbo running at full tilt until the room reaches your set temperature, and then they sit there on max fan until you remember to switch it off. So on those, turbo really is a manual thing. You turn it on, and you have to remember to shut it off again yourself. Don't walk away assuming it'll bow out on its own the way the Daikin does. One more thing worth knowing, since a mini split is really a heat pump, that same turbo button works in heating mode too. Come in from the cold, flip the unit to heat, hit turbo, and it'll throw warm air just as aggressively to take the chill off fast. It's the same button doing the reverse job. So if it's just speed, why not leave it on all day and enjoy the strong airflow? A few reasons, and they're worth knowing. The first reason is what it costs you to run. Turbo is not an energy saver. Far from it. One owner measured their Medea U window unit pulling around 1100 watts on boost against maybe 300 to 600 watts in its economy mode. For a 10-minute blast when you walk in, that gap is nothing to lose sleep over. Run it 8 hours a day and it piles onto the bill. The second reason is noise. Both the fan and the compressor at maximum mean more sound and more vibration, which is the last thing you want droning next to your bed all night. Third, leaving it on tends to overshoot. It'll blow past the temperature you actually wanted, then the unit starts cycling harder to correct, and you end up with swings instead of steady comfort. And the fourth one catches people off guard. Blasting the fan that hard can leave the room feeling cold but a little clammy, because the air moves across the cold coil too fast to wring much moisture out of it. You get the temperature drop without much of the drying. That one does vary by unit and setup, so I wouldn't call it a hard rule, but it's common enough that you should expect it. So the right way to run turbo is almost anticlimactic. You walk into a hot room, you hit it, you let it pull the temperature down for 10 or 20 minutes, and then you turn it off and drop back to normal cooling. It's genuinely handy in a few spots. Cooling a room down fast before guests show up, knocking the heat out of a bedroom right before bed, then switching to a quiet or sleep setting so it's not roaring all night. Quick recovery when you get home and the place is stuffy. Beyond those, shut the doors and windows so you're not cooling the whole house through one head. Aim the air out into the room instead of straight down at your chair, and keep the filter clean, because forcing that much air through a clogged filter just strains the machine for nothing. The setting that would quietly help most homes is the boring one almost nobody uses, plain auto or a low steady fan, not the turbo button people jab the second they walk in. Turbo is the flashy one. The steady, unshowy setting is what actually holds a room comfortable. There's one question about turbo that comes up more than any other, so let's put it to bed. Is running turbo a lot bad for your air conditioner? For short bursts, no, not really. You're just asking the compressor to do the thing it was built to do, and plenty of people have leaned on jet or turbo mode for years without wearing anything out. But here's the part worth slowing down for. If turbo has quietly become your daily habit just to keep the place livable, the button isn't the real story. Something else is going on underneath. The unit might be undersized for the room. It could be low on refrigerant from a slow leak. The filter or the coil could be caked in dust, or the space might be bleeding heat through bad insulation and gaps around the windows. Turbo fixes none of that. It just covers for it 20 minutes at a time. Start with the cheapest suspect, a dirty filter, because that quietly strangles airflow on more units than anything else on that list. This is the loud but still warm thing I flagged earlier. If you hit turbo and the unit roars, but the air never turns properly cold, that isn't the button letting you down. It's the unit running flat out and still coming up short, which points straight at one of those real faults. A healthy system on turbo feels obviously stronger within a minute. If yours doesn't, no button on the remote is going to fix what's actually wrong down there. Treat turbo as the sprint button it is. Blast it when you come in from the heat, let it time out or switch it off yourself, and let normal cooling do the slow, steady work of holding the room where you want it. The names each brand hides this feature under, and how long it runs before it quits, are down in the description.